AskReddit by Teddy by Managers of Reddit, what's the worst thing an employee has done to get themselves fired? Cart associate at Walmart was playing on his phone while using the cart mule to push a large line of carts. He ran over an elderly woman, breaking her leg and hip. Was immediately fired. Not sure what all happened to him legally, but he was out of our store. Those things don't seem too powerful when you're navigating them, but I pinned myself against the wall with one and very quickly realizing that a machine that can easily move 20-30 carts is still to be respected. It didn't hurt much, but I couldn't move the damn thing either without locking it. Was the older model with the circular emergency button. Deleted. Oof. I was a newly hired manager at McDonald's. The guy before me was working the cash register. This store was very highly trafficked. It was right off of the interstate, right on the border of city and middle of nowhere. It was the first place to stop and get some food for travelers coming in, and the last place to stop and get some food for travelers leaving out. It was not uncommon to have over $1,000 in under an hour in the cash register, and policy was to drop money in the safe at least once every hour. So this new guy comes in, works for a few hours, but the manager never did the drops. After about 4 hours, the employee goes to the bathroom and disappears. Turns out he left with over $4,000 from the cash register. Police were called because obviously they have the guy's ID, address, and information on file. Only to find out that everything was false. He stole someone's ID and social that looked similar to him and used a fake address. I don't think the police ever found him or figured out who he was. Me catch me if you can. Removing the high limit switch on a dryer causing the clothes to catch on fire. Twice. I like my shirts like I like my potatoes, double fried and starchy. Guy was just hired. He asked to go home on his second day because he shit his pants. Alright, shit happens, a little TMI, but what can you do? He must be an honest soul. Went home for the afternoon, came in on the third day, shit his pants again and asked to go home. There was no fourth day. How about you go shit your pants at home from now on? Someone got fired because he went in the bathroom on his break and huffed a bottle of canned air and passed out. He was a good employee too, what a waste. I'm a security guard and someone did something similar at my work. He hid a bunch of them around the work site and he got caught by one of his supervisors and brought to us. We had to go around and try to find them all. We thought we found them all and we took our eyes off him for a second to figure out the next steps. In the couple of seconds we took our eyes off him, we heard the distinct sound of pressurized air and then the guy started screaming his head off. The person who checked the waiting room he was in didn't end up checking the vents and he had one hidden away in there. I'm not a manager but an employee of an airport cargo handling company. We had a guy, crash a brand new jet engine estate unit into a jet engine. Bosses were not happy. But did the engine start? I used to run a large food distribution center. The overnight crew was responsible for picking orders for delivery the next day. There was a recovering alcoholic on the night crew who fell off the wagon one night. He snuck out at break and drank a whole fifth of vodka. Once he was back on the clock, he tried to stab another employee for picking the bag of potatoes he wanted for his pallet. A fight ensued and the drunk guy ran outside. We found him blacked out in his car with the doors locked. I was worried he might choke on his own vomit, so we called an ambulance. They didn't want to wake him or try to treat him where he had a knife, so we had to wait for the police to show up, break a window, and get him out of the car. Then they took him to the hospital to pump his stomach. That's so terrible and scary. My friend worked with an alcoholic whose family got sick of his shit and just kicked him out, so he started sleeping in his car on premises. One morning everyone came to work and he was dead on the loading dock. Traumatic for everyone. I wasn't the manager but when I was in retail, I was training a new guy. Seemed okay, But during the first break we were in the break room just making small talk and he just says, "So, Do you shave your pussy? I just got up and went to the manager's office. Word beat me there. I was told to take the rest of the day paid. Never saw him again. About a year ago we had an employee write a long and very explicit love letter to the new president of the company. It had some crazy stuff about him being circumcised, so it was okay if she was Jewish. Just wild and weird shit. His co-workers tried to talk him out of it, but he did it anyways. He was fired right after that. Hired a manager in his mid-40s from a well-known publicly held auto group. He was fired after a week for asking a newly hired 22-year woman if he could sniff coke off her boobs. He also seemed to talk about his sexual adventures a lot. We think his former employer knew he was a serial sexual harasser and was pleased to dump him on us. Next level corporate warfare. Literally just shuffled money out of the cash register into his pockets with 3 separate cameras looking at him. He took several $1,000s. How quickly was it discovered? Was the money recovered? Left on shift. She was a nurse for what it's worth, so she didn't just leave a store or something. She left her patients unattended and her CNA left with her to go fuck her CNA at the dog park across the street. Came back and finished her shift, night shift. Posted "I love fucking" on Facebook at 3 AM during said shift, which her husband, not the CNA, saw, which led to him showing up at the facility threatening staff members. Last I heard about her, she lost her license due to trafficking fentanyl. Wanna go to the dog park is such a good euphemism. Supposed to drive a car from one city to another on a Friday. Probably 2-hour trip. Took it to Mexico and partied for a weekend and delivered the car on Monday. This was not even a border state. Now that's just impressive. First job in insurance. Weird guy wanted to be in SWE, the team that investigates fraud. He got it in his head that, rather than investigating external fraud as part of the claims department, they were a kind of clandestine CIA operation who were listening in on our phone calls and you could get tapped to join if you were smart enough and hardworking enough. He was fired for sleeping at his desk repeatedly. Yes, we is more like FBI. An employee left on lunch break and didn't return to her overnight shift. I was the opening manager and 2 of the cash registers had been turned off. I asked the overnight manager about the registers and he had no clue why they were off. Did a count and there was a $1,000 shortage. Someone bought a Visa gift card but there was no cash for the purchase. I reviewed the security footage and there she is loading the card and unplugging the registers. She finally returned and confessed to a gambling addiction. She lost all the money at the casino. Loss prevention said either give the money back or we file charges. Her uncle came to the store and gave $1,000 and she was out of a job. Deleted. Wow. I have so many questions but I don't want the answer to any of them. Oh, I have 2. One was a supervisor that got busted in a police sting operation involving meeting up with minors at a park via a Craigslist ad. The other was this guy that left work one night, chainsawed a hole in his pregnant ex-GF's apartment door and started shooting. The baby and the baby's dad died, the ex-GF lived. Damn, reminds me of this place. Some people I know live near good sushi house, great food, great service, nice atmosphere. Then it's just closed like closed, big extra lock on the door, no explanation, no sign, nothing. Turns out that the staff had allowed a waitress who was underage to drink alcohol. She drove home drunk, hit some car, killed 2 kids, that was it. Restaurant, gone owner's entire family's income, gone jobs for employees, gone young woman probably went to prison. Bank. One guy managed the dormant accounts. Incredibly nice guy, everyone loved him, had been there for years. One day, after an audit, it was discovered that he'd been embezzling money from the dormant accounts for quite some time. Turns out he'd gotten himself into debt he couldn't climb out of and that was his solution. Not only did he get fired, he went to prison. Sorry questions cause I don't know banking stuff. Why does anyone need to manage dormant accounts if nothing happens with them? How long before an account is labeled dormant? Shouldn't there be red flags with any activity in those accounts? Sexually harassing the 17-year-old daughter of the best friend of the business owner is a pretty special way to get fired. We had a maintenance guy tell the owner's daughter and hostess something sexual and inappropriate. Not only was I in earshot of his comments, I was right fucking there. I had never heard anything from him like that, but apparently he had said things before to female employees. But me and a line cook heard it and immediately took him to the office. Like WTF bro. Not a manager but a carpenter with several employees, but I had a worker doing a window replacement in a person's home. The room he was working in had a fully stocked bar. Employee drank a $400 bottle of liquor and homeowner found him passed out in their guest room. Good for him for not drinking and driving. When I was a manager in a smaller kennel, two of the female employees came independently to say one of the other workers had shown them some very inappropriate images and made a lot of inappropriate comments about the animals. Checked his socials just to see what kinda things he's posting publicly, and it's all the worst furry stuff and sexualizing animals. Also saw some pictures of him with the dogs at work that had some very inappropriate comments alongside them. He didn't work for much longer and lost his shit when I told him we can't allow him to work around animals or give him a reference. I totally get you, you rock hard clitoris. No one wants a weirdo perv working around their animals. Blow up $45,000 worth of equipment through shoddy electrical work he had been already trained for. To be fair, this one's also on us management. We probably shouldn't have let him have a go at even this simple electrical work, considering how unreliable he had shown himself to be thus far. So as an electrician I have to ask, was this guy licensed? In my state you don't get to run jobs until you do your 4 years and pass the state test. I see contractors putting guys out on jobs to run them before they're licensed here, and I have zero feels for the contractor eating big losses like this when they have unlicensed workers running things. That's more on management and not the employees. He asked a co-worker in the parking lot if he could pay him to complete his assigned work. He faked it through the interview process and was a terrible hire. No. What an idiot. You always go overseas for that stuff. I had an employee pull out a bag of meth and ask another employee if he wanted to smoke some of it. Another employee was supposed to go canvassing in a company car. After hours of being gone and not answering phone calls, the police called from a county 3 hours away to inform me that the employee had crashed the car because he was high on heroin and I needed to make arrangements to pick up the total car. The meth head could have probably gotten away with it if he'd been capable of reading the room. He had sex with a customer in the dressing room. And then he came out and told me he'd been fooling around, and then he just left. He wasn't fired. Later on he tried to file for unemployment because he said no one told him he wasn't allowed to do it. The only thing that kept us from having to pay his unemployment was the fact that I didn't fire him. He left of his own accord. It's people like this that make HR policies into phone books. My company's internet policy 1 year started specifically referencing no pornography, no softcore, no illicit content, etc., and the next year called out CP and animal sexual content. What the heck happened the prior year to warrant that adjustment?